We're gonna hyperstition a new Roman Empire. Instead of like old legionaries, we're gonna have like these inorganic cyborg legionaries, which we are gonna become, and we're gonna colonize the universe and create a eternal cosmic empire.
Nothing human makes it out of the near future. Capitalism is AI. That's the touchstone, really, that everything comes back to.
I think we can hyperstition whatever we want. There's enough people making an active effort in brainwashing the rest of the population to like follow their ideologies. You can get the outcome that you want.
That's why I have emphasized a myth, namely the myth of Prometheus.
All right, legionaries, I'm gonna have to turn off my headphones and turn them back on because I lost something a certain someplace. We can talk about that in a second. But welcome to episode 4 of Ero-Technica. Moons and hues. While I turn off my headphones and turn it back on, any message for the legionaries?
Hello. Thank you all for being here once again. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
All right, I'm here. What did you say?
I was just welcoming everyone for coming back. So we already have some interesting comments. I think because of the title of the video.
Oh yeah.
You want to look at those?
Sure. So John Morrison, welcome back. He was on the stream last time. He said, "Remember that beautiful men Chads and women Stacys are actually more nice and fairer to you compared to normies. Ugly people's physiognomy is real." So true. There's a saying that women is the powerful drug ever. Do you agree with that? Women is the most powerful drug ever. Well, I mean, if you're straight, yeah. If you're gay, I guess it wouldn't be the most powerful drug ever. Then it'd be guys. But yeah. Generally speaking, I am straight myself. So true. There's another John Morrison apparently. Well, I don't know. We missed last week. Obviously, I was a little busy. What's new? What's new, Moons?
Do you want to talk about why you were busy and why you're gone?
Sure. Why not? Well, legionaries, I got to meet Nick Land. Was that last Friday or was it 2 Fridays ago? 2 Fridays ago.
Yeah.
Super cool. Obviously, I posted a picture with Nick in a few places, so y'all can go check that out. But got to meet Nick Land. Super cool. Got to have dinner with him, talk to him a bit. Hopefully we'll have him back on the show soon. But basically, I traveled last minute. I got a last minute invitation to go out to SF because he was doing his whole I don't know, I guess tour, American SF tour. So I left pretty last minute to go to that dinner, and I was stuck in the Bay Area for a bit because of the Super Bowl. Plane tickets were super high. So I was visiting my grandmother on Monday last week, and because of the time difference, it just didn't quite work out. So unfortunately, we couldn't do the stream last week. But here we are today to talk about the Goon Squad. Really disturbing, really disgusting. Oh my God. Are we going to read it out loud or are we just going to talk about it? Because there's some freaking disgusting stuff in it.
So I was wondering, like, how much of it are we allowed to explicitly say given YouTube's rules?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really, I guess what we could do is we could screen share it, I guess, just to show the listener what it's about, or we could just talk about it. I don't know. What do you think, Bones?
I think we could just talk about it. I feel like it was pretty, not extensive, but it was just hitting a lot of like the same points over and over again. I felt like, but like in different ways. But in summary, there's this community of primarily like men, but like all kinds of people, but primarily men who engage in like like fapping activities together, essentially.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I kept thinking about was like, this feels really gay to me. And even though a lot of these guys are just like self-proclaimed like heterosexuals, I mean, like admittedly, like some of them did say that they were like curious or whatever it was, but it's like this group organized like gooning sessions or events.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And actually at the dinner last Friday or whatever the fuck with Nick Land, we were actually talking about this article. I hadn't read it yet. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it is in relation to Gooner Accelerationism. And I think it really relates to the whole Baudrillard conversation. I mean, they even name drop Baudrillard in the article, one of the gooners, one of the self-aware gooners. But right away, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the sort of, let's say, subtle homosexuality and bisexuality. I think there's an interesting thing to explore where potentially pornography kind of makes you gay in a way, or it kind of, because it desensitizes you so much, you reach more and more limits of trying to push the high in a direction that's more taboo and that's more fucked up. That I have this theory that a lot of transgenders today are transgenders because of pornography. And I think it's related to some of the things in this essay. What do you think?
It's very controversial, but there are a lot of theories about abnormal sexual orientations or gender expressions being a result of like some kind of like traumatic event or like abnormal behaviors that then led to that. That is, again, very controversial, and I don't think there is like a real consensus on that, but I can see how that something like that could be the case.
Yeah, and for the Legionaries, if my lighting looks bad, it's because I don't know what happened today. It just kind of looks weird. Actually, that looks kind of, is that okay? I don't know. Whatever. We're going to roll with that for a second. But one thing that I sort of devolved from the article, going back to the whole Baudrillard conversation, and we lead to this idea that capitalism and technology starts to sort of determine the desires of the human subject. I think that's nowhere more obvious than in pornography, because we see this sort of, I think that a large part of this whole sort of kink fetish thing that you see in the modern world, I think a lot of it is not really natural, and a lot of it is sort of from people being exposed at a young age to pornography. And over time, the regular sexual sort of expression is insufficient because the subject maximizes their pleasure within that specific threshold. And then over time, you just get more and more deep into these instantiations upon instantiations of different stimuli to sort of lead to this, I guess, sexual gratification that you see with this whole Gooner thing. And I guess really quick, the sort of, I suppose, crux of the conversation began. I did not know this, by the way, the guy who goes to the drive-thru, you know, and he's like jerking off.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was going to a cafe bikini bar, which was really weird because I heard about that for the first time like 8 months ago because one of my friends was
you thought it was like a Burger King and he was just
I'm serious. I didn't know because I didn't know what these things were when I first saw that story. I had this friend, one of my good friends from high school. He dated a girl who used to work at these things, at these places, and that's how I found out about it for the first time. Mm-hmm. I was like, what? This is a real thing? So for the listener, it's kind of crazy. There are these bikini
like
coffee shops where it's like Hooter on steroids. They essentially run a coffee shop, but they do it in lingerie or bikinis. And basically this guy who's the subject of the Gooner Squad conversation, you probably have seen him. It's like a black guy who rolls up in a Mustang and he's jerking off while he's going through this fucking drive-thru. And it's sort of, I think that the bizarre aspect of this is a guy with a family with kids, and yet his entire orientation, his entire impulse for life is just to goon, so to speak, right? It's like, what do you make of that? It's so fucking crazy to me.
It doesn't surprise me, right? I feel like those two, not impulses, but desires, one to have a family and one to like goon are two separate ones that I feel like are innate, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a man, but in a lot of men. Whereas like you want the stability, you want the life partner, you want the kids, you want the what's it called? You want people to carry on your legacy, aka your children. But at the same time, there is like this side of you that's like testosterone driven to like be like, I say almost it's like sexually optimal is the best way to put it, but like goon, I suppose. But I feel like back in the day, maybe it was a bit more evolutionarily conducive because men had multiple families. One, because it's a little less taboo, but two, because it was economically viable at the time. Whereas like now, because men are so limited monetarily, and with COVID, a lot of them just became kind of like isolated and weird, that they turn to like internet prostitutes or just internet like sexual gratification as opposed to like a real life human being.
Yeah, I mean, even in the past, real life prostitution has always existed from the beginning of time. But it's a totally different phenomena when people actually have sex with a prostitute versus having sex with an internet figure or whatever, or having some sort of virtual sex. I wrote in an essay a long time ago that I have more respect for a tavern wench from the medieval era than I do for an OnlyFans model, because there's something more authentic. It kind of goes back to this whole Baudrillard referential. Where's the referential to the real? Okay, well, the tavern wench, she's out there, she's having sex with these noble lords who can afford her time. That's real sex happening. Sometimes a bastard is born of it. But then you start to get to this whole, virtual sexuality, having sex with a screen, even if there's somebody that's sort of actively viewing the subject during it, it's still completely detached from any real sexual action. And I think it's a big phenomenon, because one of the things they talked about in the article was that gooning, so to speak, or pornography or sexual gratification has never been easier to obtain. It's never been easier to obtain any time in human history. Even in the 70s or the 80s, it wasn't easy to find porn. You had to sneak through your brother's like Playboy magazines, or you had to sneak to your dad's cabinet, right? So it's different, right?
So there's also the counter argument, or not counter argument, but also like as a counter viewpoint that like back in the day, people were more sexually depraved, but like IRL. Like people used to make out at the clubs or the parties. Like back then, people would do sexual things at like parties and social events, and sometimes a girl would pull out a breast. You know what I mean? Like whereas like you don't really see that at like most parties or clubs or whatever events now, if it's not like specifically for that. And so I think like the lack of like IRL access and exposure to, I think, sexual activities has led to that. Whether or not I think it's more or less noble or dignified, I think is depending on like the perspective in which you're going from. From the male perspective, it definitely feels a lot less dignified, because it's like, what are you doing? Like you could be with like a real human being versus just looking at a screen. Whereas like for the women's perspective, it's like, oh, I can make money without like physically giving away myself and have some idiot pay like I don't know how many dollars a month to like talk to me. So, which is more dignified for the woman. Wait, more or less because there's more people seeing it, which I think is a lot more humiliating, but more dignified in the sense that you don't physically have to give yourself away.
Yeah, I think that the idea that it does get exposed to all these different people, to me, is more undignifying, but I see your point. But I think the larger concept behind this is the idea that sex has traveled from the real to the virtual. Because one thing that I think it was pointed out in the article as well is that more people had sex 30, 40, 50 years ago. Our grandparents want to talk about how much more moral the world was in their time, but they were having a lot more sex than people are today. And I think it's interesting that when we start to see the commodification of pleasure over time, again, going back to Baudrillard, we start to see things sort of fulfill the most efficient and functional process of attaining that core drive. So the core drive being sexuality. Of course, if you can get the same chemical stimulation and pleasure from a screen versus spending, I don't know, $100 on a date, and then maybe at the end of the date you might have sex, or going through all this trouble to seduce someone or to get in a relationship. I think capitalism in general starts to orient human actions towards achieving whatever base drive they have in the easiest way. This is the whole thing we've sort of been discussing with Baudrillard. Yeah. And the question I guess I would ask you and the audience as well is, if somebody's core impulse is sex, what is stopping them from achieving the sexual impulse in the easiest way possible, which is gooning to internet pornography, versus actually going through the process of getting a sexual partner in real life?
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if this is a direct answer, but one thing I found interesting while reading the article was that a lot of the guys, one thing they mentioned about like why they turned to gooning versus having like IRL relationships with women is that they think there's too much involved. Like you said, like you have to take the woman out, and also when you have the woman with you, like is she comfortable? Are you actually like pleasuring her, like, or is she just being polite? Stuff like that. And I think honestly, we have a problem in like younger generations of being just too damn neurotic. Like, I feel like boomer dudes would be like, who cares? Like, who cares if she's like faking it? Like, as long as you guys are engaging in this act together. Whereas like these guys are like super in their heads about it, which I think is super inhumane, if I'm being completely honest with you. I think the human experience is like being able to tap out of your neuroses and sharing that experience with someone else.
And even going into George Bataille and the sort of what sex represents to him, and you're putting some notes for a future pod or stream that we're going to do. And of course, to Bataille, sex has a similar sort of attitude to death in the sense that it's the dissolution of the self, what we consider ego death, for instance, where the self dissolves into an experience of being with another self or multiple selves. And I think that's what sex is on a very sort of poetic application, is that it's the self ceasing to exist and joining with another self to experience reality as one being, no longer experiencing it as the single self. But gooning is something entirely different, and they try to spiritualize it a little bit. I think there was a part of the article when they talk about ego death, right? The goon state. Yeah. But it's interesting because fundamentally, if you as the subject, you as the self, are experiencing this supposedly sublime ego death on your own, then where's the dissolution of the self? Where is the joining of the self to another being to experience reality as more than one being? I don't think it has the same sort of relation. And one thing that Jason Rajani pointed out in my podcast with him on Thenosis is that the erotic requires somebody who can opt out, somebody who can kill you. That's what he said. That's how he really drove his point forward, is like the person in an erotic exchange has to be able to kill you. And what he's essentially demonstrating there is that they have to be able
erotic exchange or erotic exchange?
Erotic exchange. Because fundamental to Eros, I think, of course, is, not to sound like this gay liberal hippie dude, but it is sort of based on consent in the sense that it's based upon the fact that another being has chosen to engage in that singular experience with you. And though gooning or watching pornography can fulfill the chemical or physical requirement of the sexual impulse, it fails to meet the threshold for this other sort of necessity that comes out of sexuality, which I think is a sublime experience. Like, do you agree?
Another person willfully engaging with you. And I think there's a point there of like the dissolution of self isn't equivalent to like the dissolution of two selves becoming one, which I think those people in the Goon Squad perhaps are lacking.
Well, I guess this is going to sound so fucking horrible and gay, but I guess if they're all gooning together, it's kind of like they're experiencing the dissolution of the self together.
That's one thing in the article when they were saying that like a lot of it is just like they felt like they had a community. I mean, if I had to pick a community, I don't know if I would pick that community. Maybe like an anime or something, or like a book that like, I don't know, so any other dude, like any other...
Legion of New Rome. You could join the Legion of New Rome. We can march on the modern Fume together and die fighting for a beautiful cause. But instead, these people, they choose to go in the fucking Gooner pods. It's like, Jesus Christ, join the military. Go join the Marine Corps. You know what I mean?
Maybe they're bi-curious or something. Maybe like it's like the act of like...
Join the Navy then if you're bi-curious. You can be fucking gay in the Navy. At least you're serving your country, or, making us more powerful so we could steal oil from these pathetic, weak losers who don't deserve oil, But it's weird because it is a community sort of thing. There is the tribe of the Gooner where they can feel good about being who they are. But it's strange because if we consider the whole Nietzschean leveling of man to the lowest common denominator, to the sort of archetype of the slave, I mean, you think of an unfulfilling life. What's a more unfulfilling life than living to goon, living for the mere sensation? I mean, some kid in Rwanda during the Rwanda genocide fighting off fucking Hutu militiamen can't worry about gooning. He's got to pick up his fucking AK and defend his family. There's no sort of triumphant sacrificial experience of life in this. It's just the mere input-output of pleasurable sensation. So, I mean, this sort of community, it's a community of slaves, you know what I mean?
But maybe it's also like a submissive or victim sort of like fetish as well. Because like with like the slave master like morality that like Nietzsche talks about, like in his literature, the slave is often someone that like talks down on the masters, like how are they so powerful? How are these like and having like this like victim mindset. And in the article, it talks about how these guys in the Goon Squad, they very much enjoy the videos, the compilations that are like, you shouldn't be watching this. You're such a fucking loser. Like, why are you watching this right now? You just give me all your money. Like, they liked being like humiliated. They liked being this like victim, submissive sort of position.
And it's interesting because I don't know if this is true or not, but I like watched certain interviews. You know, like there's this called what, Underbelly, White Underbelly or something.
Yeah,
They do like,
Underbelly, yeah.
Yeah, they interview like prostitutes sometimes. A lot
Yeah.
of prostitutes will say that really powerful men like to do the power exchange.
Yeah.
And they like to, but these are powerful men doing that. These are people who are actually accomplishing something in real life. And I think that the power exchange there comes from the fact that psychologically they're so used to being in control of their life that there's this sort of dynamic there. But what we see with the Gooner is there's no sort of reversion or alternate sort of shadow self from some successful real life persona.
Yeah.
Like these people do live for this. This isn't the result of a temporary satiation to a life of struggle and the pursuit of something higher, the way that this businessman who might see some prostitute on the side is doing. This is just somebody who's purely living for the sensation. Because I think it's interesting when we think of sex and what is the sort of value of sex. I don't think the value of sex is merely in this sort of chemical pleasurable exchange that comes out of it. I think that if we look at all pleasure in life, generally speaking, in a natural environment, pleasure is always the sort of result of struggle and the result of pain in the pursuit of pleasure. And I think when you get rid of the idea that you have to struggle for this pleasurable sensation, for the fix, then it completely destroys the dynamic and it leads to this sort of gooning phenomena, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying. But also the barrier to dopamine or pleasure has never been lower, right? And at the end of the day, like, we are monkeys. The end of the article was saying like, oh, we are all gooners in one way or another. Like we may not be doing it in the way these guys are, but we're scrolling on like TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, whatever it may be. And so like if humans have the access, yeah, don't play with me, I have a big dog. If humans have access to this like cheap, readily available dopamine, I think we will often opt into it no matter what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the gooning sort of sensation isn't just merely sex, because I think it applies to doom scrolling on social media. That's a sort of cheap dopamine fix. And I think it's interesting because the reason why I was so fascinated with this general topic is because of my exploration into Gooner Accelerationism and the sort of birth of a cognitive elite out of being able to opt out of this very petty input-output relation with pleasure and saying, okay, well, life is actually not about fulfilling a simple drive, but about creating more drives, about creating more potentialities, about expanding the threshold for experience. And I think this relates to it because we see psychologically what happens to the gooner, what impels the gooner to live this very limited experience. Because if we think about it, I mean, how limiting is this? It seems like a very limiting way to live. I mean, you're not going out there. I mean, even these people who are doing degenerate things in real life, at least they're actually fucking doing it. At least they're actually going and meeting people. If you look at what's the movie with Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, the really fucked up one, Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut, I think. Eyes Wide Shut, that's it. Where they go to this, they basically infiltrate like a satanic pedophile ring. Like, I'm not saying that's good by any means, but at least these fuckers that are going to Epstein Island are actually living life. This is like Epstein Island condensed within an internet simulation, because there's a lot of pedophilia that's going on in these gooning circles, which is what they talk about. So, I mean, it just seems like a very limiting way to experience life if you can get it in the most efficient, functional way. I think there's something to be said about when we talk about Gooner Accelerationism, when we talk about the birth of a cognitive elite, I think it is going to be determined by, well, what's your reason for living? Like, Moons, what is your reason to live? Simple question.
Mine?
Why are you alive? What gets you up every day?
End goal is to spread the Moon's agenda. I won't define what that means now, but it will come in due time.
Based. And I mean, that's the point. You're trying to expand your will to power, essentially. The moon's agenda is the Nietzschean will to power. You're trying to expand your will from the internal to the external. And this requires that you engage in real life struggle. You could simulate all these things. You could play, eventually video games will be so good in Gooner Accelerationism that you could spread the moon's agenda in a simulation, in Total Recall, but you wouldn't actually be doing it. And I think fundamental to the sort of, let's say, struggle that rejects the simulation and that rejects the subordination of the subject into the simulation, thus becoming part of the substance of history, is this idea that life doesn't have a clear purpose. Because these gooners, life does have a clear purpose for them, and that's fulfilling the fix. That's fulfilling the desire for pleasure. Whereas the moon's agenda, that's not a clear-cut goal. The warrior philosopher Patrick Saltykov agenda is not a clear set out goal. It's about imposing your will onto reality. It's about obtaining power. And I think the very essence of power has an element to it that isn't tied to mere sensation. Because if you're just trying to experience mere sensation, we found that there's clearly much easier ways to get there. But the way of power and the way of exacting your will to power on reality is not easy. And of course, what Nietzsche talks about in relation to will to power is the very fact that it does require an experience of life that is going to include a lot of pain, a lot of hardship. He famously says, "I wish hardship upon those close to me." And I mean, that's, I think, the path that we're going to sort of see to sort of resist the simulation is necessitating a life without a purpose, without a teleology. Otherwise, you're just going to get subordinated into this sort of desire to live for pleasure, if that makes sense. Wow, Zamani Futurist thinks Nietzsche is cringe. You call yourself a futurist and you think Nietzsche is cringe? Disgusting. Somebody kill that man. I mean, somebody arrest that man.
There was an interesting comment that we got that said, sex isn't about attaining some value. It's not a means to an end. Men with vitality seek sex because they have an appetite for it. That's it. But I think my response to that is, like, these Goon Squad men do not have vitality. Men with real vitality seek real women. They go to the gym. They have jobs. They do things out in the real world. Like, those are things that, like, there's a struggle. Like, if you're vital, you have this, like, will to power to, like, spread whatever, like, your, like, agenda is, or whether it's, like, sex, money, glory, whatever. Whereas, like, these guys are just, like, kind of pathetic. Like, they admit to it. Like, they don't, some of them, or a lot of them, don't really engage with women IRL. There was, like, one case of, like, this one guy of, like, pissing and, like, coming, like, all over his room.
Okay.
Yeah, because he didn't want to leave his room. And, like, that's just, like, a pathetic, like, gross existence. Like, there's nothing vital about that. Like, I think it's just, like, deeply dead, or, like, what's it called? Decaying. I don't know. It's a decaying human. It's not a vital human.
And I think that that's why there has to be this sort of symbolic value to sexuality. When it says that sex isn't about attaining some value, well, then what is sex? Because is sex just the orgasm? Because if that's the case, then you can experience that through pornography. Is sex about the actual act of experiencing sex with a woman? Well, in that case, then there's a symbolic value to it. Because if you think about sex as functionality, or sex as the use value of sex, it's to reproduce. Well, you can reproduce without having sex. You can reproduce without orgasm, for instance. Like, well, I guess the male kind of has to have an orgasm, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, the sort of mutual pleasure derived from sex isn't necessary for reproduction to take place. So if we take sex just at base value of what sex is in terms of what sex results in, then you can justify the gooner, or you can justify these rich fat dudes who sell their sperm, or they buy, I guess they buy women to get their sperm. Kind of like this, I don't know if you've been following the Olympics, but one of the Olympic athletes, Alyssa Leo, who is a proud Hapaborean, so shout out to Alyssa Leo for representing Hapaborea and the American Empire in the Olympics, winning a gold medal. I believe the way that she came about was her father is this really wealthy Chinese dude, and he was just paying white women to have his kids, basically. So clearly sex does have a symbolic value if we think about the positive manifestations of sex. It's not merely about the use value or the functionality. It's not merely about the orgasm. It's not merely about reproduction. It is symbolically asserted. So then it is about obtaining value. Otherwise, you're sort of justifying sex merely for reproduction, in which case you don't even need the act of sex, or justifying sex about just the mere pleasure of sex, in which case you could essentially goon and you wouldn't have to actually have sex. And I guess there's some comments about that. See, spiritual Eurasianist. I like that, Eurasianist. That's a very Hapaborean build. Sex is about seeking a certain kind of pleasure, and technology has allowed us to derive this pleasure without the need for another person. And that's why I think sex ought to have a symbolic value attached to it. Because if you just take sex merely for, is it just pleasure? Is it just reproduction? Is it just fitting within a specific utilitarian frame? Then ultimately it could sort of devolve into a very petty and disgusting and very just gray, drab manifestation of sex. And I think that for sex to mean something and for sex to represent a sort of vital force, it does have to have that sort of symbolic value attached to it. Sex with your ex is just S. I don't even know what that means, but
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with a lot of these comments. Sex is dominance versus submissive. Not necessarily, I feel. It can be. But it ultimately comes down to like the perspective of which you're coming from. Because I wouldn't necessarily say that to like two equally respectable like partners. Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that's more to the sort of superficial side of sex, because on the sort of metaphysics of sex, so to speak, I mean, a whole plethora of different things in regards to those like sort of superficial, more like that's the microcosm of sex, the macrocosm of sex from the sort of metaphysical perspective. Okay, what sex ought to be, what ought the prescriptive of sex to be? That's sort of what we're discussing here. Is gooning shameful or not? Machine Girl says. I would say that generally it is. If it's stopping you from living in real life, it's probably shameful. And says, do women really want a submissive men? I would say that in terms of...
Depends on the woman.
I would say generally, though, even women that want to experience... Again, it's the macrocosm versus the microcosm. Even when women want the microcosm of having fluidity in the act of sex, I think generally speaking... there is a masculine archetype, which in real life is dominant. In sex, in the bedroom, whatever, that's different. But I don't think that women generally want, like, do you want a man that can't protect you, or a man that's not going to stand up for you? No. So even if in sex, the man plays a submissive role, in real life, you don't want a submissive man, so to speak. So I think that no matter what, I think there's always a fundamental masculine and female archetype that supersedes things on the microcosm or the macrocosm, where the microcosm can be a little bit different, if that makes sense.
The last comment is funny. They were like, sex is when you and your foid love each other enough to chimp out together. And it's really true. It's really true. It's some monkey ass activity. It's some primal stuff for sure.
You got to be able to be schizophrenic with each other. I think that one interesting thing in a conversation I had with Kevin Deanna recently is he says that most partners, I hate the word partner, but I'm just using it because I'm not, boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever.
Why?
The internet knows more about you than your spouse does. And I think that's terrible. If the internet knows more about your sexual proclivities, because I think that it is important to have that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sexual transparency, because at a certain level, right? If some AI knows more about your sexual desires than your own partner does, then what the fuck are we doing here? Where has romance gone? Where has true intimacy sort of escaped to? So I thought that was funny, because I think it is the case that for the most part, most women know less about their partners than their internet search history does. And I think that's a very scary thing. And the implications of that are terrifying if you think about it.
Well, I don't love hearing that. I don't fucking love hearing that. Yeah, I would love to shift this conversation towards like how that affects or how this translates to the masses, the general masses, aside from those who are like strict, like Gooner Squad type people. just talking about like our like daily like internet consumption habits.
Yeah, I think it is important because if we think about the trajectory of the masses, I think we are going towards Gooner Accelerationism. And spiritual Eurasianists said trads are delusional, unfortunately. I did write something funny in my Gooner Acceleration article where the Amish are going to be fine for a while, but when the Skynet Terminators come, all their wives are going to get banged by Terminators, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it. While John Connor has a goth girlfriend, he's fighting against he's fighting as a rebel against the Terminator. So yeah, futurism forever. I'm not a traditionalist myself, but I think like we are moving towards Gooner Accelerationism, where the masses are going to opt out of reality and they're going to pick the more functional, efficient means of obtaining sexual pleasure. Because I think,
not.
Yeah,
or maybe
what's
not,
up?
Or maybe not. Who knows? Who knows? Like there could, well, I think there could be two different camps. Or there are the people who will be able to like resist it, and then there'd be like the camp of people who are kind of like fed up or like kind of like done with or tired of like everything being hyper digitized and like fake with like AI and whatnot, that they're actively like opting in for like IRL experiences.
I still think that's the minority. I want to believe you're right, and I want to believe it'll move towards that direction. But I don't know. I think you're onto something because, for example, though I myself am not a Christian, we've actually seen the youth are moving towards Christianity at a level at the highest in like the past 30 years, which is interesting because I think people do desire community, they desire identity, and they desire a community and identity that's sort of detached from this sort of late stage capitalist identity, which devolves us into the mere consumer. And really quick, that's so funny. JJJ, whatever the fuck his name is, said something really funny. He said, trad wife archetype has gotten a lot of unfair criticism post Sarah Stockening. Cheating on your husband is a long-standing tradition. It may be wrong, but it's still trad. That's so fucking funny. I'm not going to address it further in that. But I think, you know, even if you think about ideology and where people orient themselves ideologically, and we see people are going to the far extremes of the left and right, I think it's because they do want that sense of identity. They do want the sense of living in the real, because the life of the consumer is just the fakest, most inauthentic mode of existence that there is, because you're living determined by what's up?
You're living passively,
and also in a way that doesn't have any referential to real life. Every single desire that comes out of this sort of Coomer brain mindset is artificial. It's all out of this sort of modern late stage capitalism. It doesn't have any reference to an actual use in life, because the whole differentiation between use value and functional value to thinker like Baudrillard is that use value, for example, an axe had use value in the sense that you could use it to cut wood, you could use it to chop someone's head off, whereas functional value is only determined within its value to the system. So a new system, for example, social media, and now you could say there's use value if you make money through social media, but a lot of people, they want 300 likes on their posts and they don't make any money from it. There's no real advantage, but they like the idea of getting these likes. Or someone with a meme account, right? It's not even likes for who they are. It's not making them more popular in real life. It's this very artificial value within the system. It's like, oh, I want 300 likes on my meme, right? Like, what is that actually gaining you in terms of an experience of real life? There's nothing. So this is sort of where life is moving towards.
Cool and funny and likable, duh.
Right. No, I wish it were true, but like the whole anon thing, I think there's use to it. But even the anon thing, you're not actually getting all that positive engagement to you yourself. You're getting it through this artificially constructed sort of alias or alter ego that you've created. So it's like we get further and further away from the referential of the real. And I think that what I'm getting at here is that people want the real. This is why people are turning towards political extremism, because they want to experience real life. They're not satisfied being a moderate anymore, because what does a moderate get you in terms of experiencing life? It gets you access to the simulacra. It gets you access to these things that make you feel good, but people don't want to feel good. They want their lives to mean something. If your life to mean something, there has to be struggle. And how do you experience struggle? You go to the fringes of the political spectrum and you decide to be a little bit of an outcast, a little bit of a rebel, a little bit of a deviant, as Jonathan Bowden said. So I think that you're right, but I fear that the impulse of the Gooner pod, of this thing that fulfills every single sensational desire, is going to trap most people, because most people today are not becoming political extremists. They're not deciding to break BMW windows like Mike Ma tells us to do in harassment architecture. They are gooning. They are going on social media. They are accepting the base thing.
This window thing you're talking about?
Oh God, you got to read Harassment Architecture. Maybe we'll do a stream about it someday. It's such a good book. A little bit schizo, but he says we can have Rome again if we break enough BMW windows. So it's essentially this sort of play on accelerationism, where he thinks we have to destroy modernity in a Ted Kaczynski Fight Club sort of way, destroy all the credit card companies and whatnot, and rebuild from the ashes. Not saying I subscribe to that necessarily.
That feels very anarchist, maybe even communist to me.
Maybe not communist, but anarchist. I see.
Maybe like anarchist leftists, like people who like, because I have a lot of like anarchist leftist friends, and like they would say exactly that we have to absolutely destroy everything, right? By any means necessary, get to like this like get rid of this capitalist society that we're in.
It's funny though, because if you actually read a lot of these like the orthodox Marxist thinkers, is they believe you need capitalism to get to communism. So you can only become a communist Marxist state if you're first a capitalist state. This is something even George Sorel, who's a post-Marxist and doesn't really believe in Marxism, is that you kind of need a good system to be able to transfer into the socialist state. So I think it's funny, all these different camps. And I think you get a lot of LARPers with the whole Marxist thing, where they'll say certain things, but they don't actually adhere to the doctrine. It's like, but
of
what
course.
did Jake say? Oh, he said someone's
comments.
He's calling JM a Twitter troll. We don't even know if he's on Twitter, Jake. He might be. I don't know. Even the worst extremists of today are pretty tame in the West. Yeah, I mean, I would largely say that's true. I mean, a political moderate in Afghanistan is in the Taliban, so I guess the political extremists of the West are pretty tame, huh?
There's just one comment that was like, a lot of young people. Oh, no, not that one. I'll go back to that one. So another one saying, I have an interesting question. Do you think gay men possess a feminine spirit and that this leads to some transition to transgender women? So I have been reading this book on Carl Jung. And Carl Jung does say that like when men suppress their anima, which is like their feminine side, it does come out in these sorts of ways, whether it's like homosexuality or transgenderism, which I know, again, super controversial to say, but Jung did say that like when you repress that side of yourself, it comes out in like abnormal ways. So I think all men possess a feminine spirit the same way that all women possess a masculine spirit. And I think there are ways to balance it out. And if there's like too much repression of one or the other, you come out in like interesting ways.
I think the best manifestation of the feminine to the masculine, because a lot of people get turned off by this and they think, oh, you want me to dress in a dress and get in touch with my feelings? You want me to cry in front of my girlfriend? Oh. That's not what they're saying. Oh. Maybe, I mean, it's more so, I think, the sort of archetype of the Italian or Mediterranean Spanish man, where you see that they dress nice. We talked about this in our first stream, where they dress nice, they care about their looks. A lot of them are very expressive artistically. I think that's an expression of the quote unquote feminine side. Or you brought up yin yang in one of our notes that we were taking for a future podcast. And it's very similar to the Apollonian, the Dionysian. If you think about the Apollonian, the sort of ordered, sort of structured expression of the subject, I kind of see that as the masculine in a lot of ways. And the Dionysian is almost sort of feminine in a sense, where it is this sort of orgiastic, not in the sexual sense, but orgiastic in the sense of allowing this frenzied energy to express itself in a potentially unordered and chaotic way, of allowing the instincts of the human subject to flourish and act and be in the world, not structured by something akin to a Stirnerian spook. And the Stirnerian spook's like this expectation order from above saying you ought to be this way. It's sort of this very base expression of the subject. And Baudrillard writes something similarly when he writes about the fact that without symbolic value, without instincts, you lose symbolic value, because the instinct is not clearly ordered. It doesn't clearly meet a specific teleology. It just moves towards it just moves towards expression wherever the fuck it goes, and that's where symbolic value comes from. It doesn't come from this preordained, prescribed objective. And God, did some people say stuff? Gay men are
stuff.
Huh?
There's a lot of really interesting stuff in the comments.
Let's see. Gay men are not feminine at all. They're deviants, but very masculine. I think that's true a lot of times. I mean, some gay men are like the biggest women haters there are, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of true.
No one hates on beautiful women the way that gay guys do.
Some gay guys.
Some gay guys. Not all of them.
Because some gay guys are very like, oh, slay queen, blah, blah, blah. Like they'll go hype up the fat bitch, you know? It's like, dude, shut up. I thought, let's see, metrosexual is an archetype. I don't even know what the fuck that metrosexual is, but
metrosexual is exactly what you were describing, like a straight man, but he's very like vain and like feminine in his like outer expressions.
Yeah, I kind of fuck with that. I mean, I don't think that I'm necessarily like that, but I would not be ashamed if I was, because you think there's many great men in history who were very flamboyant and avant-garde. Look at fucking Gabriele D'Annunzio. You know, he marched on the Fiume. He was a very artistic, sensitive young man, even though he was like 60 when he did that. Everyone has a sensitive young man inside of them, and that sensitive young man desires to express themselves in a flamboyant, avant-garde way. He desires to paint a picture onto life with a canvas and a paintbrush dipped with his own blood. But what are your all thoughts on Lacanian psychoanalysis and subjectivity? In terms of Lacan, I actually like Lacan. I've only really experienced his works primarily through the Slavoj Žižek. So I don't think I'm like an expert on Lacanian psychoanalysis. However, one thing that I sort of derive from Lacan that I found important in my own work is the idea of let's say linguistic symbolization and the web of significations that sort of determine us, and how ultimately this idea, this sort of existentialist or Deleuzian schizoanalysis, rhizomatic, that thinks that we can escape from this anthropomorphic mode of being is sort of false. And this is the sort of thing that Nick Land is trying to develop with his own philosophy, is escaping the anthropomorphic, whereas I think the whole works of Zizek and Lacan sort of show at least that the human subject cannot escape the anthropomorphic. And the question is, and this is something we'll debate in the future, is whether consciousness can escape the anthropomorphic, whether consciousness can exist outside of our anthropomorphic understanding of consciousness. So teaser for next time. But Lacan's cool. I have one of his books here that I'm going to read soon, a Crits or something like that. I think it's a collection of all his works. But anyway, I digress.
I saw some other really cool comments. Man, we have so many. I feel like we just got a bunch of new ones, but there was one.
I feel like Spiritual Eurasianist had one. He said it's not that complex. Some people are just born wrong. Yeah, I think it depends though. Sometimes it's nature, sometimes it's nurture. I know damn well there's some people that are gay because of the way that they're raised, and some people are just fucking gay. So I think it's a combination. But yeah, sometimes it's just whatever. Let's see. Where are we? What's another good comment we've got?
One thing I found really interesting. There's two, but one saying a lot of young people go into Christianity to join the maximally powerful / organized team they can happily compromise into. And then they put a quote saying, people who don't organize into tribes get wiped out. People who do. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I just feel like a lot of people in the West are already raised Christian Catholic, and you kind of like get away from that. Like when you're a teen, like that's what happened to me. Get away from that as a teenager. And as an adult, you kind of like rediscover like the magic of like Jesus Christ. But I don't think it's necessarily like joining a more powerful team. It's like, oh, I was raised this way. I got away from it. Maybe let me revisit it because that's what my ancestors did.
I think sometimes it is joining the powerful team. If you take like a Christian nationalism, like most of these guys are not, they are not very well read in the Bible, but it allows them this sort of friend-enemy distinction. It allows them these friends to identify with so they can exert themselves politically. So I think in that sense, JM is correct. But I do think you're right. And especially if you think about the entire moral fabric of any ideology, it does have its roots to Christianity. I mean, even Marxism does. So anybody who says that, for example, a lot of times with these leftist types, you hear them say, oh, if you need an objective morality to be a good person, you're probably a piece of shit. Meanwhile, every single way that their morality manifests is in many ways Christian. So I think there's also the sort of thing that Jung talks about with the meta narrative and the sort of generational psychological imposition of this Christian morality, which does still drive people towards the religion, and especially in this sort of dehumanizing soulless modernity, rather than sort of take the Nietzschean Übermenschen position of being he who which transvalues life and creates his own values. It is easier to do the sort of Camus social suicide and pick something that's there already. Of course, this is what Camus says is social suicide. If you've turned back to the church, it's probably a hell of a lot better than tuning out. So I applaud you. If you have to choose between the Catholic Church and becoming a troon, I say become a Catholic. It's good for you. Catholic Mass is fun. I'm not a Christian anymore, but I love Catholic Mass. A lot of fun. Geez, I feel like there's a lot of comments since then. Kritz is tough to start with Lacan. You recommend his seminars? I'll definitely check those out for sure. Also, I just read a lot through Zizek, and Zizek does a great job of interpreting Lacan. So sorry, I've been droning on a little bit, Moons.
No, it's okay. There's just so many comments. Another one that I wanted to hit on, it's a little earlier. Someone said, centrists enable the status quo by refusing to act, while pure dissenters refuse to govern, so they never actually change anything. One avoids accountability by not picking sides, the other by never holding power. In the end, both leave regular people stuck in the middle. And as someone, I don't know if I'm a centrist necessarily. I would say maybe I'm more like a populist, because like I really don't care what your politics are as long as you prioritize like working class people and like the safety of women and children. Those are my main things. Like if you're not protecting children, what are you doing? But like I totally get it. It's like people who are like the very extreme ends never hold any real power for the most part, because what the hell? And people in the middle, it's like, well, you don't really have a stance, so you're not really going to push any sort of like agenda.
Well, I can say this. Oh, did we not read John Morrison's comment, or did we read it? Is he saying thanks because he's serious, or because we missed it? Or did you just read his? I don't know. Sorry, John Morrison. I might have missed it, but if you post it again, I'll read it. Unless you just read it.
We read it at some point. Okay. Yeah, no, that is his comment.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure he wasn't being sarcastic and we missed it. But like one of the main reason I'm politically right, for example, is I just like the fucking aesthetics of the right. I like the sort of spectacle. No, but it's not, because if you think about it, there's nothing more honest than accepting that you like things because of the aesthetic. I mean, Nietzsche says life should only be viewed as an aesthetic phenomena. And this is sort of my perspective, is that what I find to be aesthetically beautiful, I'm attuning my taste based on my subjective judgment of aesthetics. I'm going to orient my political aspirations around that. And I think that if you look at the friend-enemy distinction, I like the fucking aesthetic. Honestly, yeah, I like the fucking aesthetics. If you think about where people align themselves in terms of friend-enemy distinction, they don't do it based on the shared descriptive. They do it based on the shared prescriptive of what they want to see. For example, let me explain what I mean by that. You have Hegelians that become Marxists, and you have Hegelians that become fascists. They kind of agree on some level on the descriptive of what constitutes the construction of morality and ethics in reality. And yet, you'll see traditionalists like Evola, you'll see futurists like Marinetti, and you will see neo-Hegelians like Gentile come together under fascism. And similarly, you'll have people like Baudrillard, you'll have people like Marx, you'll have people like Sorel. Maybe Sorel eventually became right-wing, so maybe that's not a good example. But my point being, if you look at the modern left, for example, you have a lot of disagreement on the left about what constitutes their moral foundation, how they determine what is morally good or wrong, right or wrong. Marxists are actually not postmodernists, by the way, guys. Marxists generally adhere to a somewhat strict moral fabric of reality or whatever, whereas the postmodernists rejects the moral fabric, so to speak. That's sort of the Deleuzian, Guattarian, post-structuralist, whatever the fuck. Orthodox Marxists like Lukács and Adorno fucking hate this whole postmodernist thing. Zizek is very critical of postmodernism. Leftists, they come together based on the prescriptive they want. They want a more egalitarian world. That's what unites leftists. What unites right-wing people? It's wanting to see a more hierarchical world, fundamentally. So that's why you see Evola trads and Marinetti futurists coming together with Christian nationalists and sometimes conservatives. So I think that I feel very confident in saying that, yes, it is because I fucking like the aesthetics that I'm on the political right, because I think that's what really forms the friend enemy distinction. It's what you aesthetically want to see in the world, not how you come to those conclusions of the aesthetics. That's what forms alliances, not the descriptive. It's the prescriptive.
It's difficult, right? Man, I do. Okay, I don't want to get too into it, but I do believe that in a just moral society, the people in their country will have free education, free healthcare, like government like assistance if needed. And I know the United States believes that because not for nothing, we do send billions of dollars to some other countries so that they can have all of that, right? And so it's like, how come we fund someone else so that they can do that, right? Another Western country, but we don't believe that for our own people. And that goes into the safety of women and children. Like, I think if you want a society in which you have the fertility rate going up, if you want like women and men getting married, if you want people having kids early, all that stuff, like you have a social safety net in which people feel comfortable having children and having a family. And that's what we had like decades ago. Like the US had like solid social safety nets that we clearly don't really have today.
I think it also comes down to identity and the fact that if you look at the majority of people that are in the country, there's no clear American identity anymore, ethnically or culturally or religiously. And for example, why would I want to pay my hard-earned taxpayer money to support some migrant from the third world, for example, right? I'm not trying to get too political here, but why would I want to pay for a family of 5 to be supported by welfare, right? So if I was, for example, if I was Japanese, a lot of people think I'm Japanese. I might be. I got to do a DNA test. I could be Japanese. But if I was Japanese, like 100% Japanese, and everyone in my country was Japanese, of course I'd want universal healthcare. Of course I'd want universal education because they're my people. I want to see my people flourish. But in America, who are my people? Who are my folk? Even me as a Hapa, and Pepe said respectfully, maybe Pat, you're white aligned. Well, I am half white, so obviously I am white aligned. Right. I'm also East Asian aligned. Shout out to the Hapaboreans. But I always make the joke, I'm the blacks of Europe and the blacks of Asia because I'm predominantly Irish and Filipino. So I know, I'm an Untermensch, guys, but don't worry. I'm post-humaning myself, hyperstatizing myself to the Hapaborean master race. But what I'm getting at here, I was having a conversation today about welfare, right? And the question was like, wouldn't you want to help your other half of the family on welfare? Bro, Filipinos are the second most wealthy economic group in America, funny enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's funny, right? So actually, I'm not helping my people if I pay taxes for welfare. I'm helping fucking people from Honduras and Guatemala. Okay. And no, I'm not. I don't want to help migrants with their freaking welfare because they're not my people. Right? America doesn't have a folk. It doesn't have a people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be completely ethnic. I think ethnic identity is the easiest to form your country around. But for example, Brazil has a very ethnically fluid sort of identity. So clearly it's a little bit different.
I don't even know what I am. Am I white? Am I brown? I don't know.
Right. So like what I'm saying is it's not always the case, but I think it's easiest to you want to help my people, Pat? Thank you. Help the Hapaboreans. That's my people, the Hapaboreans. We're Western aligned American Empire Hapaboreans. If I get deported from America because the Wignats come into control, I'll fight for American interest as the dictator of the Philippines. I will always fight for America, even if I'm deported. Even though I was born here and I fought for this fucking country, I was in the
military. If they deport me, I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I just love America. If I get deported, I'll still fight for American interest abroad. Maybe that's Stockholm syndrome, but I got to believe in something. I got to symbolically attach myself to some identity. But I think subject's correct. I mean, fundamentally, yes, there are forms of identity beyond the ethnic. It is the easiest form of identity to arrange your society on. However, if you take the Roman identity, right, Gauls could become Roman, Britons could become Roman, people from Hispania who are Celtic could become Roman. There's an imperial identity. So I'm not saying I'm not doomer pilling America needs to become a fucking Anglo-Saxon. Like I would be kicked out of that too if I said we need to return to a WASP American empire. But there is something to consider if we want to have universal education, universal healthcare, and all these things. You do have to have an identity that is shared amongst a different group of people. And frankly, I don't have a lot in common with somebody from Bangladesh who came here to be an Uber driver. I just don't have, I don't really have anything in common with him. So why would I want to pay my taxes so that he gets free education, free healthcare, so that he could, you know, bring 10 more Bangladeshis here, you know? Not that all Bangladeshis are cool. I'm sure there's like a dozen Bangladeshis who are cool and they love my channel, and those are the cool Bangladeshis. But the rest of you are fucking, I don't know what to say. Bangladeshis in general, pretty fucked up. But the 12 Bangladeshis who are cool support the warrior philosopher, and they can go create a Bangladeshi warrior philosopher republic back home one day.
I don't even know how we got here, to be honest.
You were talking about how we should have universal healthcare and education. I was saying I'd be down for it if I had a people, if I had like an identity that I shared with people, which has to be either religious, cultural, or ethnic. And ethnic was the easiest one. But I don't want to take care of people that I have nothing in common with, is what I'm saying. And that's, I think, why there's an aversion in America to want to have socialist policies, because it's primarily going to benefit poor people who are not American.
You'd be surprised how many like rural Americans like are actively for like these kind of like policies. And I think like we probably fail them the most out of any other group in this country. But because they don't have an amplified voice, like we don't consider them when we have these discussions. But they've been here since like, I don't know, since the Pilgrim days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the Scots, Irish, Appalachians.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would want to help them. I think they're American, right? Even if I do have to go become an expat in the Philippines and create a CIA-backed dictatorship there to fund the American empire. But no, I agree with you. I just think, I guess what I'm getting at is it's problematic. If you go to like England, for example, or France, why the fuck would you want to have welfare there when welfare is paying for some Middle Easterners or some Africans to come in and have 10 kids for free in fucking Paris? Like, no, I don't fucking want that. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying it's a little bit complicated, and that's why universality can be difficult, because I think it's easier to want to have universals within particulars, but it's difficult when you try to say, well, for example, I don't think the whole world should be equal. I want my fucking people to be more powerful than other people. Maybe I don't have a people. Maybe I gotta go found Hapaborean somewhere. But once I have a people, and for now and forever, it'll be in conjunction with the American empire. I want to see their interests represented first, and my people could be a spiritual race as well in the Volan sense, right? You could be part of that, Moons. You may not be a Hapaborean, but you could be part of the new Roman spiritual race, right? It's not just limited, but it's got to be something.
I refuse to take a DNA test, and I'm so glad I did, because there's some weird stuff going on with that. But I just don't know like where I fall in any kind of like racial spectrum.
Yeah, I would guess that you're probably a mix of probably Amerindian and European, but you know, it's I digress. It doesn't matter, because you're spiritual race of the new Roman, and we're proud Americans. And if you get deported, you'll go create an American dictatorship in Brazil. So we all have our plans. We all have our plans in case we get deported. But
you're moving to Rio.
Yeah, spiritual Eurasianist says being mixed is terrible. Well, you know what? I kind of enjoy it, because it's given me a big challenge, which is trying to find identity that is not yet created. So it's a unique challenge, but you know, I gotta do what I gotta do. I myself am a Hapaborean, so I must embrace. I am who I am, and I'm nothing else, and I'm proud of what I am, and I must hypersthetize my spiritual race, the new Romans.
My reply to that is that, like, so Brazilians are often known for being like some of those beautiful people on this planet, and most Brazilians are mixed, even to a small degree. Like every Brazilian is mixed to a degree. But we also do have a culture surrounded by like prioritizing aesthetics, so that's a whole thing as well.
Yeah, Adriana Lima, I was going to say, she's actually black, by the way. Adriana Lima, she's part black.
Yeah, as many Brazilians are. Yeah.
Yeah. Though I will say, I think the Hapaborean aesthetic's a little bit better than the mulatto, a lot better than mulatto aesthetic. I will make an argument for Hapaborean aesthetics, especially in the Olympics recently. Everybody, even like really hardcore white nationalists, are simping over Elisa Leo and Eileen Gu. So I don't want to hear you guys in the comments. You know, you guys are fucking sipping over some Hapa queens. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Hapaborean is the future, and we will support our Hyperborean allies, but no, it is a unique thing. Someone
someone said Moon's Dynasty, Brazilian Empire.
There you go. You got this. So I found him, said, I feel that healthcare, shelter, and food should be non-issues in the robotic age. And I agree. And this is the whole thing of Gooner Accelerationism, is that, yes, it won't be an issue, but also people are not going to use their excess resources for something positive. They're going to, if in the case that you can fulfill every single base desire, which is common to the petty mass man, they're going to pursue that in the most efficient and functional way possible, which is through simulation, not through an experience of reality and the non-productive and the irrational, which comes alongside suffering and struggle. They're going to pick the easiest way out. And that's the whole thing with Gooner Accelerationism, them coming up with, is that I don't, yes, I think you're right. People aren't going to have to suffer the way that they did in the past, but the alternative is that they're going to pick the easiest way to live, which is a really pathetic way, which is essentially living in a video game. Because why would you live to be a middle-class citizen in the world when you could be a trillionaire in a simulation and it be experienced exactly the same? Because that's the whole point I have, is that in 20 years, simulations, video games are going to feel as real as reality. And the result of that is that people are going to opt out of reality. That's the whole Gooner Accelerationism thing.
I think the people in the Gooner pods just stay in the Gooner pods, and everyone else will figure themselves out. It's like it'll be like a different class of people, right? It's like, and I think this differentiates from like working class, upper class, whatever it is, because if you're opting into being in the Gooner pods, I think that's self-inflicted. Whereas like, I feel like a lot of like working class struggles is like often like generational or whatever it may be. But I think people in the Gooner pods should just stay there, and everyone else who has agency should go and try to change the world.
And we're gonna have more resources to do it. Get in the fucking Gooner pods, you freaking chuds, you little fucking Gooners. That's what you want to hear, isn't it? No, but not people in the chat, because people in the chat are my fucking Roman legionaries. Some of you are being a little hostile, but the people that are with me are my fucking Roman legionaries, my new Roman legionaries, or my Hapaboreans, and we're gonna found our own new fume together, our own new state, and we're not gonna be fucking Gooners. What do you say? Pat's desire spilleth over, alas. I don't know what you're saying, but all right. I found him, said, what if they find meaningful suffering in the simulation? Good, fine. I don't care. Put them in the simulation. Put the 99.99% in the simulation. I don't have to deal with their fucking stupid voting anymore. I don't have to deal with the masses voting, which is fucking amazing, because something Julius Evola talks about is that obviously once you have a democracy and once you have to have politicians adhering to the lowest common denominator, it's just going to make the rest of society fucking ugly. Cavalry Europe! He's always freaking giving me some really good super chats. This is the second super chat.
Was this our last guy?
What?
Was this our last super chat person?
I don't think so, but he did give me a super chat in my last video. Hello, racially questionable Führer. That's me. I'm the racially questionable Führer, the Hapaborean Führer. Do you feel loyal to America for the sake of loyalty or genuine respect for American ideals? No, it is a genuine respect for American ideals. When I was saying that I have to pick something to be loyal to, the point I was making is that even if I was, even on the off chance that Patriot Front takes over and they kick me out and they ship me back to the Philippines, I'll still be loyal to America because I love America. And I do have ancestors that were here from the very beginning on my paternal, basically my dad's grandfather. So my dad's mother's father. He actually can trace his lineage back to, I believe, 1654. So I'm working on getting, I'm going to get my card for Sons of the American Revolution soon, because we could trace our ancestry back that far. So I do have the blood ties to this country. I served in the United States Marine Corps for 5 years. I love America. And yeah, I mean, I do love America because I think I was reading the Federalist Papers today, getting ready for a future video, for example. And in the Federalist Papers, they talk about the Union and how we can't have this confederacy of small states. We have to have one American Union so we combat our enemies, so we can expand through manifest destiny, this vision of America as one people. expanding across the continent. And that shit just gets me fucking motivated. It gets me invigorated. So yeah, I love America. And someone said totally real and authentic Patriot Front. Yeah, I won't speak on that because I have no clue if they're legit or not. But I was just saying, if they win and they decide to kick me out, I'll still be loyal to America because you know, sometimes the whole identity of the right, I think, is that you have to find a symbolic value to pledge your life to. And it has to mean something more than the base individual, the atomized individual. And for me, it's the American empire. And if I have to make the Philippines a loyal client state of America, I will do so. I love the Philippines too, by the way. It's a beautiful country. But America first, baby. I was a Marine for 5 years, and I hold that with me always. Long live America, long live the American empire and all that. I'm droning on a little bit. I apologize, Moons. I'm just getting a little bit passionate about America and this beautiful country.
No worries. I saw one comment that I was thinking of in my head, actually, that it was Jim said, permanent underclass is just the goon pods. And it's very true. It's very true. And there was another one that said, where is it? Oh, I agree to allow people to self-eliminate from traditional society, but my argument is if conscious experience is something that we value, then we ought to honor the simulator's experience and preserve. We didn't argue anything that goes against that. We can honor them by letting them stay in the Gooner pods.
Literally. Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Yo, Cavalry Europa is friends with Gabriel Sprock. I love Gabriel. We're trying to do a trip together at some point. Talked about this a lot while we were in Rome a few weeks ago. Oh, you were at that? Dude, he was at the fucking Rome Congress. That's so fucking cool with Casa Pound. Cavalry Europa, that's so fucking cool. I wanted to go to that, but I'm a bit of a brokey right now and I had to drop $500 on a ticket to go to SF to go see Nick Land. So I'm saving up to go to Rome, though, this summer. Gabriel's supposed to go, too, I think. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Fuck, maybe not. Well, shit, I did say anything. But no, that's so fucking cool you were at that. I heard so much about that. I have some friends over at Casa Pound. Maybe we'll chat later. Shit, hit me up, Cavalry Europa. It's so fucking cool you were there. I agree with Elaine Badeau. Bad Gio. I don't even know how to fucking pronounce the name. I know who he is. I'm shit at French. On current situation, we need to get rid of democratic materialism and fight for materialistic dialectic. Politics doesn't exist today, IMO. I want you to elaborate because I don't know if I agree or disagree. Please elaborate for my and
then kind of related to that, someone said clavicular is right. Politics is for jesters.
I think modern politics is freaking stupid. Absolutely. However, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just say it is it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I think modern politics is pretty like lame, but you kind of have to deal with it to have any influence. You know, I don't know. It's tough because I think politics in the interwar period, for example, the age of revolutions, whether that's revolutions on the left and the right, it showed that people who are not part of an economic elite could take charge of the country and take power in their countries, right? There's a lot more agency, whereas today it's like, how the fuck do you do that? Oh no, I see bros using ageism on 40-year-olds on X. That was Andrew Tate. Dude, I love that guy, by the way. We did a podcast together in Gooner Accelerationism. I was making a joke about Andrew Tate because Andrew Tate, he was like, say, Aramaxing with clavicular. I'm like, bro, you're 40 years old. Like, dude, like you're not one of the kids anymore. He's trying so hard to stay relevant. He's like, oh, no, Mog, we're starting the freaking Mog company, you know. So that wasn't ageism. That was me being funny.
I think he needs to get married and have kids.
He does have kids. He's got like 4 kids or some shit.
Oh shit.
With some bimbo, lip filler, Botoxed Eastern European prostitute or something.
Many such cases.
Especially with him. But what else? What are people saying? Democratic materialism, they're only bodies and languages. Well, please elaborate. I'm just trying to understand the context here, how it relates. Because for me, my whole thing is that you have to create a symbolic. Some people might call me materialist because my metaphysics is a derivative of phenomenal life, and I'm coming up with values and aesthetic judgments based on biology, based on nature, and then from there I'm attaching a metaphysical value to it. I don't know what you call that, but that's me. Symbolic value, you know, glorious operation, George Bataille.
A lot of my beliefs come from the metaphysics, or the spiritual, the metaphysical realm. I know that sounds kind of wacky, but I feel like us going off of like our own phenomenological experience is us going off of like the shadows in the cave in Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yeah, I would disagree, but
What?
you could be right. Well, I just don't think that because I believe that even if you take paganism, for instance, right? Paganism does not rely on revealed texts. It relies on an experience of nature that is the subject phenomenally experiencing nature and then attaching a value to nature. That's the whole idea of pantheism versus like the Abrahamic religion, where it is more of what you're talking about, where yes, that it probably is also informed by pantheism and nature, but then it tries to attach something totally different, whereas paganism is more about the phenomenal experience of reality from the human subject, and then he uses, different like there's no sacred texts to paganism. You have the poetic Eddas of the Nordics. That's not like a text the way that the Bible is. It's a story. It's a mythos about your people. The Iliad or Hesiod's Theogony. Like there's no, like for example, with Hellenic pagans, there's no clear Bible for Hellenic paganism. There's different texts that sometimes contradict each other. So it's more about the subject trying to, let's say, impose his view of nature onto metaphysics rather than the other way around. So my argument to you would be that metaphysics is a result of our phenomenal experience of reality and how we interpret that into metaphysics.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. But I also do believe that every person's like human experience is like fundamentally different. There's no such thing as like one person having the exact same like phenomenological experience as another.
No, I agree because, for example, I disagree with Kant, right, where he tries to put aesthetic judgments on this sort of universal taste that is shared amongst humans. So I agree with you in the sense that I disagree with the Kantian perspective. Obviously, the particular, right, has a specific taste which sort of derives aesthetic judgment from biology through nature, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas I don't think that there's this sort of shared ability for us to deal with the metaphysical, so to speak, or to deal with aesthetics. I do think it's unique. And it is somewhat, I mean, everything to me is about balancing subjectivity with objectivity. Clearly, biology and nature work as a certain objective. Like things that are ugly are ugly. I don't fucking care. Clearly, a fat fucking whale, right, who's 300 pounds and goes to these fucking anti-ice rallies and goes, freedom, liberation. No, you're not fucking beautiful. You're ugly. All these like, there's like these really fat people who go online and people are telling them how beautiful they are. They're not fucking beautiful. They're ugly. But within what is beautiful, there's different manifestations of the beautiful. So, for example, clavicular who thinks you can look smacks to a perfect face. I disagree with that too, because I think there's a lot of different manifestations of beauty. However, there are clearly objective truths of beauty that are determined by nature and biology that are inalienable, that act as this sort of web of significations and predeterminations you cannot escape. And then from there, this is where we go into the realm of mythologizing. We mythologize based on certain truths, but I think those truths are more so rooted in nature, and our subjective experience is taking those truths, taking those predeterminations, and transvaluing them into something that could be more than the sum of its parts, and that's where symbolic value and what I consider erotic evolution and sort of an antithesis to the Darwinian thesis of evolution, where we move towards an expansion of our senses and expansion of experiences rather than just trying to fulfill a function of experience, which is survival. So I'm not this will to life kind of person. That is will to power. It goes beyond the functional. It goes beyond mere survival of the fittest. It is about what I would call erotic evolution, expanding eros, right? And being able to experience more things. And this is where we can get in the realm of post-humanity, artificial intelligence, and where the sort of cyborg human comes into play, so to speak.
What's that quote that like everything's about sex except sex is about power?
Who says that? That sounds right, but who says that?
I don't know who says that. Just the internet says it.
Oh, some AI fucking malt book agent said that shit.
No, I see all the time.
Let's see. Subject and Void said. So wait, spiritual Eurasianist said even biology is socially constructed. I think it does get to be socially constructed because selective breeding, right? Like eugenics and stuff like that. Like we all engage in eugenics. We all agree that incest is bad. Why? Because if two fucking brothers and sisters have sex, they're gonna create a little fucking retard baby, right? So clearly we all operate on eugenics. We don't want to reproduce with an ugly fat fuck. I mean, some people do, but for the most part, like everyone engages in eugenics, and that's I guess that's sort of
like what if he's rich?
Right, but that's a form of eugenics. It's just disgusting eugenics. It's like you're gonna marry a fat 5'5" Armenian. Oh, that's mean. I like Armenians. I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry, guys. I like Armenians. That was a low blow. I apologize. Let's pick some ethnic group everyone hates. Somebody put it in the comments, and I'll I'll put that as my example of like a fat 5'5" ugly person that you're marrying. I mean, Bap talks about this. Bronze Age Pervert talks about this. He says that India gradually lost the original beauty of like the early more Vedic Indians because they started mating outside of the caste system for money and going with like the lower caste merchants rather than sticking with the oh my god, I should not have said that. Fuck, I messed up here. Oh my god. Now everyone's just being racist. I just justified racism in the chat. All right, I'm gonna, for the sake of my channel, I'm not gonna say that again. Hassan Piker. Yeah, Hassan Piker is kind of good looking. No homo, but he's like a decent looking guy. He's a fucking loser, but
he's a handsome man. The lady is like,
I can't deny it. But he's a total prick, you know what I mean? Total bitch. Total FAG. Sorry guys. Apologize. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I'm ranting today. I'm just having a good time. I'm enjoying life. Yeah, Moons has been drinking and I've just been having tea. And yet this is me.
We were both supposed to have wine on our night.
You're right. It was my fault. It's because, well, I suggested maybe in the future, you know, it would be like cool for the, I think it'd be more fun if we like had a drink that we were going to have ahead of time and we told the listeners so that they could drink it too. So it's like, you know what I mean? It'd be kind of a shared experience. It'd be the Bataille ritualistic loss of the self. We'd all lose the self in drinking this one drink. Total ego death, total dissolution of the subject through drinking this this drink, you know, so to speak. But
I got invited to the clavicular like Remelia after party at LeBain, and I
should have gone.
I know, but I had just gone back from my flight. My flight ended at midnight, which is fine because the party ended like 4 a.m. or whatever it was. But I was like, man, I didn't want to go to that. But I was like, I really should have gone.
Yeah, you should invite Clavicular on this show, and I could have browbeat him for like an hour or something. No, I like him, but he's kind of a dumbass at the same time.
When I look at him,
I have mixed feelings on him.
When I look at him, I have a lot of maternal feelings.
Aw.
Because he's a child.
He's a kid. Yeah, he's like fucking 20 years old or some shit.
Yeah. So when I see him, I see the autism in his eyes, and I'm like, oh, someone needs to protect this child.
That's very wholesome. I can't say I feel the same way, but very wholesome, Moons. Very wholesome. I'm sure Jung talks about this or something. There's got to be some Jungian psychoanalysis of this shit. Are you a red wine or white wine person? Subject and Void asked.
Neither. I like orange wine, which I guess is white wine. They just call it orange wine. I don't have like. There's also sparkling red wine, which is amazing. Orange wine, but right now,
is that just a rosé? Or is that not what a rosé is?
No, rosé is not sparkling red. There's like an Italian like deep red that's sparkling. That's amazing. And right now I'm having a hard cider, so it's not a wine, but it's a hard cider.
Lacan over Jung. No, I agree with that. I really like I said, I just got into Lacan recently, mainly through Zizek, but I do like Lacan a lot. Clavicular is just a product of his gen. Half these Zoomers are doing the same thing, if not as famous. Well, I don't know if many people are doing exactly what he's doing, but they might think that way. I don't know. It's just this late stage nihilism, trying to find symbolic value through looks maxing. It's kind of beautiful in the tragic sort of way. So I kind of respect it on some level. But like Z's, that's my that was like the OG fun influencer guy. Z's was Dionysian maxing. Like fuck Clavicular. Z's was the guy. Z's died at the height of his beauty. Z's was that chaos which birthed the dying star. He was that flame which died too quickly. He was that spring bloom died before autumn, you know?
You know,
so
I think
Freud is also weird.
I wouldn't want people to judge me so hard on who I am in 1920 because I was fucking stupid.
You also weren't famous though.
No, yeah, and he's 1920. He's 20 now, I think. And I'm like, damn, like this guy can't even like go into a bar. Like, I'm not here to judge him. He might be a completely different person in a few years. Who knows?
We'll see about that. I don't know if he's still alive. I mean, he's taking a shit ton of steroids and he's not even working out. That's not good for you. I mean, like he's taking 250 milligrams of testosterone and he's taking, I think, 25 milligrams of Anavar. This is not quite like full blast, but like you're not supposed to be taking that year round. It's not good for you. And on top of that, he's not working out. He's eating unhealthy. He's gonna die.
I
His
started
cholesterol's
listening
probably
to
through the roof.
Chinese peptides recently.
That's okay. Peptides are fine. Maybe not Chinese ones though. You know.
I think they
Trainer.
just call them Chinese.
America only.
I think they just call them Chinese peptides, but like gray market injectables.
Yeah, but the problem with that, it's not tested. I mean, honestly, taking steroids is safer because at least you know people have been doing that since Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like this is like the past 2 years stuff. You're gonna take a completely experimental drug. It's like these fools that are taking SARMs. Like, don't take SARMs, guys. It's stupid because it's not tested yet, right? You should stick with what you know, even if it might be bad for you.
It's like, my thing is, like, I already got vaxxed for school. Like, how much worse are these peptides? You know what I mean? Like,
I guess. I mean, it's like, should I do coke or should I get a COVID vaccine? You know, if I'm gonna do cocaine, then like, is a COVID vaccine worse? I say yes, it is. Do cocaine, not COVID vaccines, guys. Yeah, Faustian Max. A true Faustian will do coke, not COVID vaccines. I'm kidding, right? I'm just kidding, guys. Don't do cocaine.
I'm completely joking.
Very bad. Don't do any drugs unless they make you a better writer, in which case do a lot of them. But geez. We're almost at an hour and a half.
I know. This was a fun one.
Yeah. I hope people enjoyed it. I feel like we might get some hate comments because we talked about gooning for so long, but it's like it's pertinent, you know, it's pertinent.
And we were referencing an article that we read that I found was really interesting because it really does touch on like the state of society at the moment, whether like it is maybe not like gooning specifically, but just like this like active this passive consumption of like content, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have an identity anymore. They're being subordinated, subsumed to their identity as a consumer. That's what late stage capitalism does. And look, I'm not a commie, but clearly we need to change our relationship to capitalism. Pat on coke. No, I'm not actually. I would admit if I was. I'm not.
I was out and about recently, and I saw a guy who seemed healthy but just really overweight, and he was like on one of those like chairs those like mole chairs that I was thinking of, like Wall-E.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, damn, I think we are at a point where people like consume so much for the sake of consuming that they like disable themselves. And yeah, I don't know.
I mean, our future is going to be like Wall-E, but instead of going around on chairs, they're going to be in one chair. It's going to be in their little Gooner pod. They're not going to have to leave the Gooner pod because they're going to be hooked to IVs. They're going to have robots who check their vitals every now and again to make sure that their fat, disgusting, pathetic bodies continue living for a age of 80. And they're going to be fed with all their Gooner porn, virtual AI girlfriend shit. And it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a thing. But meanwhile, I promise you this, legionaries, I will commit seppuku before I become subordinated to the Gooner pods. I will go to the White House and I will demand that Emperor Barron Trump fulfill his role as savior of America. And I will do so by sticking a short blade into and across my stomach and committing seppuku the way that Yukio Mishima did on November 5th, 1970, in honor of the Emperor and wishing for him to return his divinity and dying alongside one of his key Tatenokai members, while the others were sent to trial and eventually acquitted, by the way. So it's a happy ending to the story. But I will seppuku before I fall to the Gooner pods. I promise you this, legionaries.
Isn't it seppuku? I don't know. Okay. Seppuku.
I think it's seppuku. I don't know. I could be saying it wrong. I'm not fucking Japanese. Probably. I might be Japanese. Who knows? She got a bath yesterday, so she smells really good.
Your cat?
Mm-hmm.
What do bald cats smell like?
Do
they smell like regular cats?
No, because regular cats have that furry kind of smell. No, they smell. Right now she smells good, but usually I guess she smells sweaty. I don't know, sweaty. She's really cute though. I mean, she loves me. I love her. She's really cute, isn't she? Look at her, legionaries. Look at this.
I'm a cat person. I can't lie to you. But I love good fur. And so I think she's so cute, but it's like I'm missing the fur.
Yeah. Well, she's hypoallergenic, so you know.
I am allergic to my own cats, so
you just bear with it. That's got to be painful.
It varies depending on the day. Some days I feel it, some days I don't. So it's like whatever.
For sure. I see. Well, Well, we're gonna instead of going to the Gooner pods, we have to stay alive for our cats. So that's what's gonna make us the cognitive elite. We're gonna stay alive for our cats, stay out of the Gooner pods, so we can raise our cats and fight the system. Eventually, God willing, if I don't seppuku myself to avoid going into the Gooner pods, we will be part of a new state, a new Rome, so to speak, and we're gonna hyperstatize a new cybernetic intergalactic imperium in which we are the select few who decline to goon our way into oblivion, to goon our way into subordination to the historical process of history. No, we shall reject the simulation, and we shall embrace a hyper reality of vitality. We will take hyper reality and we will transform it. Perhaps it is an abstraction. Perhaps we are stuck in this mire of the simulation. But guess what? Our rebellion is that with what we have, with what agency still remains, we shall create a fantasy and a mythos of the future. And so be it if it's still mired in capitalism. We're going to reassert our subjectivity over capitalism. We will control capitalism. We will make it do what we want, so far as one can do that. Maybe it's a foolish goal. Maybe it's a foolish vision. We will try. And if we fail, then we can always seppuku ourselves at Mishima and die brilliantly, valiantly, and beautifully. And that's all I have to say, That's all I have to say.
I think we should make America hot again, or sexy again.
Make America great again. Power and greatness, that comes with all these things. That comes with the aesthetics. That comes with Eros. We just have to put we got to put our savior Friedrich Nietzsche at the height of our spiritual journey, and so on and so forth. I'm just kidding. I love Nietzsche, obviously, but there's a lot of other thinkers you ought to read too. I've been getting into Hegel. Don't shoot me, hardcore Nietzscheans, but Hegel's got some good stuff too. Though I'm still a hardcore Nietzschean.
I got some cool books recently. I have a book guy who hooked it up for me recently. I got some really weird shit, but I'm really excited. I got this one about what's it called? Physiognomy, essentially. Fuck, I can't. These aren't even showing. Oh, there you go. Face fortunes. About reading people's faces. Basically, reading people based on their faces. This one's called Naked Ape. It talks about male or human sexuality. I had this one on Jesus, which I think is really cool. Look at that.
It's Jesus.
And then it's my second copy of Birth of Tragedy.
Hey, there we go. Nietzsche pilled. In the case of Wagner too. It's a shame what happened there.
A conspiracy, CIA, MK Ultra type book.
Yeah, we'll cover that on stream, and you'll never hear from us again. I guess before we go, I want to see what people said. Ido Shaw said, "What's your nofap streak?" Well, I happen to have a relationship, Ido. So unfortunately, that results in I'm not going to say anything else, but that's my answer to that. Anyway, Cavalry Europa, who has super chatted me twice and is apparently a friend. I just realized we have a mutual friend, so it makes him a friend. If you get toxoplasmosis parasite, it makes you like cats even if you're allergic to them. Do you have that? Maybe you have that.
Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised, but so toxoplasmosis is a parasite that you can get from your cats. Even though I don't know how often it actually occurs, but if you get toxoplasmosis, there's also a decent percentage of developing schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia, bad for life, good for writing in occasions. So we'll keep an eye on that, Moons. Fichte? I never know how to pronounce his name. I've seen the name many times. Over Hegel, read Fichte. I will. I'm not saying I'm a Hegelian maxer. I'm reading Hegel because it's torture and it's like bench pressing or hack squatting. It's necessary to make you stronger, but I don't enjoy it. I enjoy benching. I don't enjoy hack squats. So reading Hegel's like hack squatting for me. I don't necessarily agree ultimately with Hegel, but I think it's interesting. There's some interesting stuff to derive from that. So covered that.
Hegel maxing.
Yeah, Hegel maxing. I mean, I'm not a Hegelian by any means, but he's worth reading. Gabriel Sprock, who Cavalry Europa mentioned earlier, our mutual friend, loves Hegel. So Gabriel's a great guy. So I'm reading Hegel for his sake, if nothing else. Things change so much with social media and phones. People in 2000 AD are closer to psychologically to people in 1600 AD than 2026. That's actually a really good point. You might be right on that. Hegel and Hermetic tradition. Benching is the only thing I enjoyed for a long time. True. But hack squatting sucks. I hate hitting legs. But you got to do it, guys. You got to hit legs. So anyway, any thoughts, Moons, for the Legionaries before we wrap up?
Again.
What?
I need to start hitting the gym again. I really enjoy weightlifting, but I'm always on and off with it. It's like I'll get like super muscular and then I'll stop and then I'll go back because I'm not muscular anymore. But I really do need to go back to the gym. The gym is great and you just feel great like all around.
You're lucky you're a woman. It's like easier, I feel like, because you could, as a woman, you could literally just jog and you'd be fine. As a man, I have to do all this shit. I got to hit legs. I got to hit chest. I got to hit back. It's like so much to worry about. It's like being a woman, all you really got to do is make sure that you run, you eat healthy. It's like so much more that goes into the male physique, you know?
Because women
it's true.
Have a natural
Is it true, chat?
No, women have a natural tendency to put on or to have more body fat. That's why women take testosterone to lose body fat and gain muscle.
Fair. I'm not saying it's like easier to get in shape. What I mean is there's if you go to the gym, there's less stuff you have to focus on if you want to have a desirable physique as a woman. Whereas as a man, I think like you have to hit so many different muscle groups. But anyway,
this is true. That is true.
Yeah, but well, I don't know. Thank you, Legionaries, for listening to us rant for an hour and a half. We'll see how people like this one. If they like it, if they don't like it. Like I always say, this is like the Ero-Technica is where I get to relax a little bit and we can just have fun and chat more casually. If you think that these aren't structured enough, watch my podcasts. They're pretty structured. So, you know, and enjoy the casual streams because you don't have to, you know, we just like enjoy life a little bit. Schizomax a little bit. Schizomax.
Jester Max.
Jester Max, Parasite Max. Get those parasites for the cat addiction and whatever. But I don't know. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, you'll get a Roman eagle delivered to you by doorstep with the little cat with the propellers around his head. He'll give you a Roman eagle, so give him a pat in the head. Maybe a treat. He's allergic to chicken, so try to give him a fish, maybe a sardine. He likes sardines, so try that out. But other than that, Moons, any final words for the Legionaries?
No, this is fun. I think they actually really enjoyed this one this time, so I'm happy about that.
Well, hypersatize it. You enjoyed it, Legionaries. You enjoyed it. You're gonna like this.
You enjoyed this stream.
You're gonna like and subscribe, and you're gonna give us millions of dollars, and we're gonna use it to create a secret society and infiltrate the government. Anyway, thank you guys for watching.
They might be invited to. Who knows?
That's right. That's right. Founders. Anyone who donates $1 million and above gets a founding member card to the secret society. It's going to be like the Freemasons, but based. And instead of globalism, it's going to be imperialism. And there's going to be this imperial cult, which spreads across the world and creates a cosmic empire, which will catapult into the stars and so on and so forth. But anyway, thank you, Legionaries, for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and you probably got the Roman Eagle by now. So thank you, Legionaries. Awe Nova Roma, Awe Ero-Technica, Awe Caesar. It is Patrick Saltikov and Moons and Hughes saying goodnight straight from the Mars base. Avita Zane. We're going to hyperstition a new Roman Empire. Instead of like old legionaries, we're going to have like these inorganic cyborg legionaries, which we are going to become. And we're going to colonize the universe and create a eternal cosmic empire.
Nothing human makes it out of the near future. Capitalism is AI. That's the touchstone, really, that everything comes back to.
I think we can hyperstition whatever we want. There's enough people making an active effort in brainwashing the rest of the population to like follow their ideologies. You can get the outcome that you want.
That's why I have emphasized a myth, namely the myth of Prometheus.